Welcome to step 21. This step is going to be kind of interesting in that there are some decisions that need to be made for what I'm doing with this kit, and they're not going to be the same decisions for everybody who's building this kit. I know that doesn't kind of cover it well, so we'll just kind of start with some of the steps and go forward from there. First off, I want to say all the parts that I want to use or at least discuss have been cut off the trees and cleaned up. For the most part, I took the black wiring that is in the kit. There's a big spool of it, and as this said, you need 15 millimeter lengths times 5, which I have done here. But the first part that I want to get to is this sunshade. Now, with this setup, you're supposed to go in and get this photo etch strip here and bend it, and this photo etch strip here, and attach it, and also attach the clear parts, and then attach it to this, and then attach it on here. The problem with it is these clear parts and getting this painted up without adding them on there. So at this point in time, for right now, I am skipping the light bar. Now, I have taken a look at what it would be like on here, just kind of looking at it without bending it yet. And there should be plenty of room with this on to add this to it later on, after the painting is all done, and putting it together. Now, I may decide at some future point to add one of these photo etch bars, or maybe both of them without the clear parts, put them on there, and then leave the clear parts for after it's all painted. I've just got to see how far along this goes. And this is one of those steps where if you are going to be building, sometimes you just got to take it on faith one way or the other that it's going to work out, and then kind of work around it. So that's my big advice. Take it for what it's worth. Sorry I can't be more helpful, but it really does depend on what you're doing. So the other thing to note is that this is supposed to have 2 fold-ups for the wings, I want to call them, and they'll match up with the roof there. But this line that's etched in this way, I think that's meant to be a marker for putting on the light bar. So I'm just going to bend that at about between a 30 and a 45 degree angle, and it looks good. It's on the line. Same with this side here. And then I'm just gonna put it on here, see how it looks. Now I'm being very careful because I do have these parts glued in underneath, and it looks like that's too strong of an angle, at least on the one side over here. Although this does go together well. So I'm just gonna, with my fingers, just bend this back a little bit. Not too much, not too worried about it. And then go back, and what I'm noticing is that these rivets on the 2 sides are going to be my markers for how far back this goes. And it looks good otherwise. I'll have plenty of room. Oh, I'm not showing you. And so I'll have plenty of room with that line there to be able to put that light bar on without any issue. So dealing with photo etch on photo etch, I am making sure to bend this and keep it as straight as I can. I might even want it to have a little bit more of a bend on the edges, just so it's easier to work with when I glue this on. Now specifically for this edition, what I want to do is scuff up the edges that are going to be glued on both of them. And the easiest way to do that is with a sanding stick. Now I don't know what everybody's using. for their sanding sticks, but for this particular case I'm using a refillable flexible stick, and all I'm gonna do is just come on the sides and just, I can see I'm scratching it up, and that's good, just to give a little bit of bite. Now I don't want to go too far in because I don't want to mar up where this may not cover, but I just want to make sure that this is all gonna stick, because having this pop off would probably be a major pain at any given point after I've decided to glue it on. So I'm just going along and giving it a little bit of a scratch. Underneath here, I'm not as worried about exactly where I go. This isn't the easiest thing to do, even if it is just scratching it with a sanding bar, but it's going to not necessarily be seen as opposed to the top of the roof, the interior part. So I'm going to get my black super glue. I'm going to check my roof again. I'm going to bend it a little bit, and then I'm going to start putting a little bit of glue on here. Now I don't want to go too crazy with it because I don't want it to mess this up. Okay, so glue's on, looks good. I'm going to start with one side, and I'm aiming for this right here and right there, and laying it down and right there. So now I've got it glued. And yep, the usual little, it's always a little bit of something that sticks. Right now what I'm worried about is making sure that this all sticks together as nicely as possible. And those rivets are in a good spot. It's off a little bit though. And yeah, it's off, and that ain't moving without taking it apart. It's not off a huge amount. It's off by about 0.3 of a millimeter. But if that bothers you, it's something you may want to look into if it happens. Or two, don't look at it. I mean, it's not going to be easy to see once this is all put together and painted. And I'm using the super glue remover to clean up the worst of it. Now it may seem like I'm kind of being a little sloppy, you know, oh well, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. If I was really concerned about the straightness of this, because it was, let's say in real life, a very important part that, you know, very noticeably always straight, or something that I was really worried about, then I would probably have measured things out and gotten things more measured out. I mean, it's the best thing, you know, measure where exactly this should go, line it up, and there's still a good chance that, you know, such a small area, it's 0.3 of a millimeter for doing a hobby is pretty small, and that's a little area to work in. It's a very tiny area, and if you can tell here only because it's closer to the rivets and it's off about there. Now, one thing I could do is completely unglue it, put it back on. However, also in real life, these things are not put on exactly. There is a little bit of give in them, especially over time if they wear. So if you wanted to depict a piece that had been used a bit, you may want it to have a little bit of an angle to it. But if you don't, I would suggest measuring it out. But the important thing is that the roof fits nicely on there. It's got the sun cab, the sun shield that the light will go on. It looks great. And the louvers, the detail is pointed up, which is where it should be. So I'm going to set that aside and pick this up carefully. Remember, we're being careful with the cab. And I'm going to go down to dealing with this exhaust first, because while that's drying, I can do some other parts. So take this, glue it together like so, and there we have. What's important is it's round on this end, keyed on this end. It could be swapped around, and that shouldn't be a problem. So you can't really mess it up, but it's important to know which end is keyed and which end is not, because this has a key in it. So this has to go on this way to get it to arrange properly. Make sure that it's good and square so that there aren't any seams. Squish it together, make it look nice. Put some glue there. Get that started. Let that kind of start to work on it. Now I cleaned it up, but you can see that there's still some lines in the accordion type portion of it where it's going. And also note that this goes like this, so this goes down, so you want the hose part bending towards the mounts, at least according to diagram. I look at it this way to get myself, there's a little slop in the key, so I can get it angled straight up and down, at least for right now. I'm not that worried about it at this point, because I'll be putting it on here, and then we'll check and see that everything's okay in all dimensions. Just wanted to get that started. Now, the next thing I want to do while that is setting up is I want to put on these detail parts right here. Now, this gets interesting because the hoses go on the 5 little nipples right here, and then they just go into the side. There's no positive point right there. So the easiest way to deal with them is to put out some of this black glue. Now this has copper inside of it, so I should be able to bend one, get an idea, and go from there. So I dip, and then place. Now this was kind of dumb of me because I've got 2 interior ones to do yet that I haven't done, and I just did the furthest one back. So if it's still, yep, still capable, I'm taking that off, and I'm going to make this bigger. Re-glue that a little bit, and then how much closer am I? Now I'm on the bottom edge, and that's fine. So this is where planning comes in. That will help a lot, because now there's no glue on that at all. So put some glue there. There we go. And I'll be honest, I'm not exactly sure why they were so insistent that all of them are 15 millimeters long when they are all not going to fit unless they're supposed to be this screwy, as in kind of uneven and high and low and so on and so forth. And as you can see, this is still not glued. So I will glue this one on. This is just something to where you need to have patience, and then if you happen to have driven one of these beasts or know what these cables are for, maybe this is important to you. Maybe I'm making light of an area that really shouldn't be. I don't know for sure. But as this is a detail, so now I've got those two glued on. Now it becomes a game of figuring out how much to bend and where to attach so that things fit. And that's glued on. Now the nice thing about the black glue is that kind of once it's on there, it sort of sticks. So I don't have to worry so much about things kind of getting in the way of each other or so on and so forth. I can just kind of glue it and go. Like so. And I don't know if this is, you know, if I'm screwing these wires up by putting them in the wrong direction or wrong order, but there really isn't a whole lot of help coming from the instructions per se. I don't know the real vehicle, and I'm expecting that this is not going to be a critical detail, meaning something that is going to show up and people are going to be specifically looking for how well these wires are put in, put on, as opposed to, hey, is the detail there? And on this case, we're also putting this piece on like so. So while that's drying, I'm going to put this right there with the glue. Have that get into place. And I will say this, the Hobby Boss plastic that they are using really does glue well. I mean, it takes the tester's glue and it starts to set up very soon after, which makes things a lot easier for dealing with this. So I've now got the filter of whatever kind it is, fuel filter, oil filter, transmission fluid filter. I've got it down below. I've got those wires in underneath, and looking at it, it shouldn't interfere with the fuel tank, but that's always, you know, stuff is always in there. Okay, yeah, it fits in there fine. So I've done that. The only thing now that I have to worry about is that this filter is further down than these supports, so I can't just put this down like this and expect that everything's going to be a-okay. I'm going to have to find a direction to do this, and that direction I'm going to use is on the nose, because to me that's going to save a lot of problems. Now I want to put on the exhaust. However, notice that the exhaust points forward. This is the front of the cab. So put this here like so, noting that that goes to the front. Unusual, not the way I expected it to go, but that's how it goes. I'm assuming it hooks up with the engine area, and that's why that is the way that it is. I don't have a problem, just not expected. You always expect the exhaust to go sideways or backwards or something like that, and chalk it up to the kit being complete or nicely done. So once again, that's in place, and I've got it on its nose, but I've got it on the windshield part of the nose. like so. Now, just to get this done, we've got a little bit more photo etch over here. So this needs to be bent, and this needs to be bent. But thankfully, they're just simple bends. And the bolt heads are on that side, so I'm going to bend it up so that the 90 degree, so the bottom basically is going away from the side that has the bolt heads. And those are the other kinds of details that you really sort of need to pay attention to. The nice thing is that this piece is big enough to hold it. The bad thing is I still don't have a stupid razor blade for doing this. It shouldn't be a problem, but I've got to get one tomorrow. It's still doing the job that it needs to do. I'm not having those kinds of problems. It's just that it's kind of ugly. And you know how we all are now with videos and expectations. Everything's got to be pretty all the time, right? So I've just being a little bit jaded there, that's all. Anyways, I, however, don't mind doing this ugly, because at some point in time or another you're going to do something. Maybe you forget, maybe you're just not that good at it, maybe you're just starting out, whatever, and it's going to be ugly, you know. Yeah, okay, so fine, it's ugly. How do you fix it? Well, in this case, I'm taking forceps and squeezing it flat. Next thing is also to be a little realistic. These are guards. Guards get smacked up. They're not always 100% flat. Maybe you want it flat, that's great. You know, I got no problem with that, but so on this one, instead of putting most of the metal on the outside, I'm going to put most of the metal on the inside. And with my knife blade, I should be able to control it better when I do the fold. So there's that. Get under it. Fold it up. No muss, no fuss. So there are my two parts folded. Now, the way that this says is that this is supposed to be like this, and this is supposed to be like this, and that they bolt together, or get glued together like that. Right there. Okie dokie. And you'll see this end looks a little sloppy, even though, so I can go through with my forceps and nicely level this out a little bit better. I want it to look good for when I glue it together. Now, that said, this is the part that's going to mate with that, so I know I can go here. Now, I'm not scuffing these up just because I don't think it's important for something this small, but if you want to, go ahead. And then I'm going to take the part right here and I'm going to drop it because that's fun. So there it's glued. And from everything I'm seeing, this should be, there. It glued and then it fell apart because I dropped it earlier. So I'm going to scrape the glue off of here. And you'll notice this stuff is sticking pretty well. So that's part of why I'm not worried about scuffing this up. Practice, practice, practice. But everything that I see shows me that this guard goes in place right here. There's a small ridge to help guide me, but this should bolt, or it should be tight up against it, not separated out in any way. Meaning no gaps. And no, I don't know why they didn't just make this one photo etch piece then, but I'm assuming it's because of all the openings in this grill here and then adding these little details right there. Just a guess, but that's where I'm going with it. So once again, carefully picking this up, I'm going to dry fit this. Goes on like so. Looks good. In this case, put this back down. I'm going to go through and I'm going to apply the glue from the bottle right on that, instead of using the cement. Just because this piece right here is super thin on the end and I want a good contact right here. And there it is, all snug in there. Snug right there. A little bit. See, the glue is really thin. Again, being careful. Put a little extra glue there. Put a little bit on the tip of my forceps. And then being as careful as I can all the way around, try and get a little bit. I'm sorry if this, yeah, that's off screen. I had to hold it against myself, but I just put a little glue on the tip of this and then put a little bit in there just to get it in. And now I'll clean this up. Again, being very careful of where I'm putting my fingers during this. It's one of the downsides of working on these very, very dedicated kits. This is where people will get those hand holders. They'll attach the model to it and then they can just grab the handle and move it around. I personally don't care for them, but other people really do like them. Now, why am I scraping this instead of using the glue remover? Partly because it left that white residue, and partly to show that there's more than one way to do it. The downside of this is that if you tweak this enough, it'll pop the glue, and then you got to re-glue it, and you know, tears and sad words. So now we're just at the point doing these rear view mirrors, and with these mirrors I'm not going to attach them to the cab, but I'm going to build as much of them as I can. So that means everything except for this PE MD18, and I'll mark them right now because I don't want to attach them at this point. I will probably attach them right at the end when I've got most of this built, so then I don't have to worry about knocking these rear view mirrors off while I'm manhandling these things around, as you're seeing. So there's that, and then I'm going to mark off these for now. And I'm just marking this so that I understand that that attaches to that. So, all that said, when I look at this part here, what's important to note is which side has the little lug or attachment point in the middle and which side has the bolt detail on that. There's definitely a difference because the centerpiece is what this gets glued to. So I'm going to take this, glue that, and add that. Now the important part is as far as I can tell, looking at the detail in that, there is no up or down. So you can't screw it up by putting this on upside down when you do it. However, once you decide what's up and down, don't screw everything else up. Put a little extra glue in there. So I've got that. Next detail I'm going to put on is this. You've got the bolts that this hooks onto. Really easy to put on, just a little touch of glue and the glue will run. Pretty simple. I like to add a little angle like the real thing. Gives it a little bit more dynamic. So I'll let that dry right there. While I'm doing that, I will bend this photo etch part as the bracket, and this is simple, little L shape, so I'm not too worried about it. This gets attached on the back of this light, excuse me, so that this can be attached. Now, what they don't tell you is wait a minute, this doesn't fit like this. Does it fit like this? It does fit like that, but if you put it like this, which makes sense, then what? Because here, in a way, it looks like it's going flat, but actually what it's showing is that it's this direction and this direction, so it is going in very much. In this case, I reversed it around, but it is sitting like this. So it's showing you to put it in like that. Now, it's not as easy as it looks, but that is what they're saying. And again, for this, I'm going to use the super glue and put that in there. And using my fingers create kind of a block just so the glue can start setting. There it goes. Adjust it within like 10-15 seconds just to make sure everything's good, and it's pretty much set. So at this point, I've got glue on my forceps, and that's kind of screwing them up. So I'm just scraping that off. There you go. Now, here I've got my light, or my rear view mirror, and I need to now take and glue this very delicately done part right onto there. And that will complete the build of this side mirror. But, you know, yeah, simple, right? So in this case, because I want to do this a little bit even more delicately, I'm going to use my knife blade to get that on there. Now I'm going to just dip that in because it's getting up in there. So this piece does go all the way up to the frame, not just on the bolt head. That is a lot of delicate parts. That is a lot of kind of fumbling around. But that is, I have to say, that is pretty awesome for a rear view mirror. I mean, that is one of the best ones that I've seen, bar none. Even with the 24th and 25th scale semi-trucks and model kits that are out there, like from AMT and Ertl and stuff. I mean, this is pretty awesome. And just a tip, in the past when I would do stuff like this, and these are mirrored, glossy black, and then after that glossy black is on, you can take a chrome. Some people like the Molotov series. I've got an old chrome pen from the Testors pen series that I'll get out, but any of it, you can put it on there and it does give a nice finish. Just depends on what level you want to go to. What are you worried about? So there's one done. Repeat for the other side. Again, just got to remember which side is up after you put these on. Don't want to mess up. So there's that. Now for this one, instead of putting the rear lamp on, I'm going to put the glue on first, then put it on, or the light or mirror, just to see if I can get it on with less glue slopping around. And it looks like I pulled that off. And I am impressed with how, yeah, I still need more glue just to feel comfortable. So there's that. It's impressive as the engineering and the detail level. I mean, these kits are not cheap. Usually 150, 200 bucks, somewhere in that range, depending on where you get them from. I know you can get them cheaper from on individual sales and stuff like that, but can't always count on it. Now, the important part is which way is this going to go on? So don't put your model over the instructions for doing this. Unless, of course, you don't, and then you can just put it on either way. So hot tip of the day. You build it here, one goes there, one goes here. I like the idea that these are, okay, they're different. That's good. They're in different directions because they're on different sides, and you want them to look uniform in that regard. So here we go, right here. Again, bottom is here, so that means I want that rear view right there. Now, is the direction and all that really going to make a difference to me in the end? No, probably not. There we go. But I like the idea of dropping things all over the place. No. I like the idea of having things be well done. I mean, that's part of the reason why I'm doing it at this level, is to have this not just done, but well done. And there appears to be enough glue there, so it's just a matter of whether it's preset or not. And again, put that down. So, at this point in time, again, I did not do this light bar setup up here. I may change my mind. But otherwise, we've got the sunshade over the top here. Put the muffler and the grill on here. Put the wiring and the filter on this side. Pick this up carefully and check and make sure. Yep, the filter has moved just a little bit, but there you go. Make sure that we're putting this down to dry in areas that are going to be okay. That covers step 21. And when we come back, for step 22, I will have decided what to do about that light bar. See you then.